All right, what's up, folks? Anthony with Bleacher Bums Gaming, and we are going to do a little bit of a different project. Standardly, the channel has pretty much exclusively cards and dice with some vlogs and whatnot. But I wanted to do something, also play out of the park baseball offline, and wanted to do something with out of the park 21, which I thought might be interesting. And that was take the initial five inductees into the Baseball Hall of Fame, meaning Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, and Honus Wagner, and put them in the 2020 Major League Draft pool and see how they would fare in today's modern game. So the premise of this, it's not going to be any gameplay on the channel. Basically, just be episodes where I kind of recap each season from draft through the end of their careers, and basically just see how they turn out. The settings I'm using on this, I imported each of the five players a year prior to them actually joining the big leagues. So as an example, Ty Cobb first joined the Tigers in 1905, and I imported him from the database in 1904, and for the other four players as well. And what that will do is it will, one, make not all of them eligible for the 2020 draft. Ty Cobb, for an example, is only 17 at the age of import. So currently in the draft pool, he's a sophomore in high school. So he won't actually be in the draft until 2022. Johnson, Ruth, and Mathewson won't be in the draft until 2021. And Wagner, who started later, he imported as a 22-year-old. So he's basically a college-age player, and will be in the draft as basically a college player out of Stanford, of all places. So they'll be joining the universe in staggered fashion. Ratings, I'm letting the game, I hid the injury ratings, so I don't know what their injury ratings will be on import. That will avoid the temptation to audit them. And basically, it's going to let out of the park baseball career play out untouched and uninfluenced and see how they end up. So let's talk about the five right now. As mentioned, Honus Wagner is the only player eligible for the 2020 draft, which I've simmed up to at this point. Ratings-wise, he's regarded coming into the draft as a potential of 65, and I have, again, players rated on the 20 to 80 scale that Major League Scouts use. So he actually isn't even in the mock draft I did. He wasn't even in the pitcher for the first three rounds, which is kind of interesting. And looking at some of the others, and first of all, a little bit about Wagner. As mentioned, he was assigned Stanford as his college. His batting stats in his senior year in college, he hit 343 with 3 home runs, 45 RBIs, and was 38 for 43 in stolen bases attempted. So a pretty good season for him in terms of his final college year. The others, and again, Mathewson, Ruth, and Johnson won't be available till next year. They're currently juniors in high school as we start this. So of those three, Johnson is rated as the number 3 player available in next year's draft, 2021. Mathewson is right behind him at 4. Ruth, amazingly enough, isn't even on the radar. He's, at this point, not even in the top 50. So again, I'm going to let out of the park baseball play this out as it will. Ruth might not even get drafted. If he doesn't, he won't be in the replay. So Johnson, as a pitcher coming out of high school next year, currently as a junior in high school, Walter Johnson has a record of 8-2, a 1.43 ERA. And again, he'll be the number 3 player in the 2021 draft. Christy Mathewson right behind him at number 4 for the 2021 draft. He is 9-2 as a junior in high school, 1.49 ERA and 14 starts. And Babe Ruth is 8-4 as a pitcher. He doesn't have any hitting stats, and again, ranked outside the top 50. So it'll be interesting to see if he even gets drafted. If he does, it will definitely be in the lower rounds, unless by next season his potential ratings are changed in the eyes of the out of the park baseball scouts. And then finally, Ty Cobb, he imported as only a sophomore in high school. He does project at this point with a potential rating of 70 as the #1 ranked player in the 2022 draft. And Cobb right now is looking to be the best of the bunch. Hey, Dave, what's up? I enjoyed listening to you and Ron earlier. Hope you're doing well. Uh, this is basically a project I'm doing with Out of the Park Baseball, importing the first 5 Hall of Fame inductees: Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Walter Johnson, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, into 2020 Out of the Park Game World, and just kind of seeing how their careers play out. So Cobb, as mentioned, is a sophomore in high school right now. He batted a phenomenal in 2020 605 in high school, which is absolutely insane. That's a great average for Little League. So at this point, again, #1 prospect in the 2022 draft, 2 more years to play in high school. So no telling what he'll do in the 2 seasons before he eventually gets drafted. So where I'm at right now is I simmed up to the 2020 draft. And again, Honus Wagner, the only player eligible. Now, coincidentally enough, Honus, even though he wasn't projected to go in the first 3 rounds, ended up being the #7 overall pick. I'm just letting the teams draft them as they're. I imported them into the draft pool, Dave. So whoever drafts them, we'll just go with that and let their careers play out. And Honus Wagner actually ended up going #7 overall in the 2020 draft. And again, coincidentally enough, he was taken as a center fielder by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Honus, drafted by the team he actually played for in real life, which adds a nice little twist to that. Taken ahead of him in the draft, and again, the 2020 draft pool has real players. AC, who is a pitcher out of Texas A&M, Austin Martin, generally regarded as the top prospect in this draft. He's a shortstop out of Vanderbilt. 2 high schoolers go next. Nick Bitsko out of Central Bucks East in Pennsylvania. Jordan Walker, a third baseman out of Decatur, Georgia. And then ahead of Wagner, Emerson Hancock, Georgia pitcher, and another pitcher, Mick Abel out of high school, Jesuit High School, Portland, Oregon. So, hey, Joseph, how you doing? Derek, I didn't import. It's just the first 5 guys from the inaugural Hall of Fame class of 1936. And Ruth, based on his numbers now, he'll be in the 2021 draft. He's a junior in high school currently in the game world. He is not projected as a top 50 prospect. So there's a chance he'll be drafted extremely low. So that'll be an interesting storyline. All the other 4 are very highly regarded. And of course, Wagner going in this year's draft as the #7 overall pick. So this episode will basically just be talking about Wagner and his 2020 season with Pittsburgh. I'm not expecting any of these guys to spend much time in the minor leagues. And Ruth, again, is rated only as a pitcher. He didn't have any hitting stats, though looking at his potential, he has extremely good potential in hitting. And he's really the one I wanted to follow the most closely, because now with Ohtani with the Angels as basically a baseball's version of a 2-way player on the mound and also in the field, Ruth has that same capability. And, really over the years, Ruth obviously back in the day used to play in the outfield when he wasn't pitching for the Red Sox, and led to him being converted to a full-time right fielder. Other players throughout history, Smokey Joe Wood was one of the dominant pitchers in the dead ball era. In fact, the 1912 season he had. Hey, Rob, how you doing, buddy? I've got something for you in a second. But Smokey Joe Wood, one of the players, premier pitchers in the dead ball era. In fact, the 1912 season, he broke Walter Johnson's consecutive win record, and they had an epic pitcher's duel. His arm eventually died, and he converted to the outfield, went on to have a fairly good career as an outfielder with the Red Sox. Others, Lefty O'Doul came up as a pitcher. His arm went dead, went to the outfield, and had an exceptional career, mainly with the Philadelphia Phillies through the 1930s. Hit over 380 one season. A recent example of that would be Rick Ankiel, of course, with the St. Louis Cardinals, who just lost his ability to hit the strike zone, and had a decent career as an outfielder after that. So it'll be interesting to see if Ruth morphs into that two-way player in this replay, where he both pitches and gets some time in the outfield, or if one or the other takes over. So that'll definitely be interesting to see. So let's go to the chat real quick. Right now, actually, the 2020 season is playing out. I simmed to the end of the year after the draft to see how Wagner ends up in his first season. So, okay, Dave Gardner, you think two of them could end up on the same team? I ran actually a trial run of this just to see if it would work. And in that draft, coincidentally enough, the Baltimore Orioles, in that draft, I imported the players the actual year they debuted, and that kind of skewed things a little bit because they came in with their rookie ratings. In that replay, or pre-play, I should say, Ruth and Walter Johnson both ended up on the Baltimore Orioles. Johnson, a first-round pick, and Ruth getting picked up in the second. And coincidentally enough, Baltimore, within about 3 or 4 seasons, was a powerhouse. They also picked up Gary Sanchez later on down the road in that replay through free agency. In that pre-play, however, Ruth, both of them actually, Johnson first after 4 excellent seasons, 18 to 20 wins, his arm flamed out and he was out of the league after 6 seasons, retired. Ruth was kind of up and down, eventually became more of a full-time outfielder, still pitched sporadically throughout his entire career, and had a so-so career in the pre-play. So I wanted to bring them in a year earlier, as mentioned in this playthrough, to give them time to season a little bit more in the minors and bring them in with lower actual ratings versus potential. So, yeah, very possible that 2 of them could end up on the same team. And Rob, hey, really shout out to Rob. Yeah, Ankiel did turn into a horrible pitcher. If you haven't been around Rob's channel, he did a thing where it was 100. I forget what the actual name of the game was, but kind of like a lotto type thing. And really great effort. Really want to commend Rob, taking in money to help out people affected within the community by the COVID virus. And excellent gesture on Rob's behalf, and very appreciative of that. Give his channel a look. Again, Rob, ! He's in the chat. Some good content on there. Always entertaining to listen to Rob and his playthroughs and just general stories about life. So hats off to you again, Rob. Appreciate that. And actually heard from Chris. Everyone stepped up big time, brother. A lot of folks did. Chris actually, no, you know him as Tabletop Sports Delaware. He was a winner, and he, outside of some money that he channeled to his brother, who also needs it, accepted no money on the 50-50, put it all back into the community. And again, great gesture. A lot of good people in this community and stepping up to help each other. And Chris actually got the boxing game today, Rob. He was emailed me about it earlier, so he's playing that and is going to put that up on his channel later as well. So, but again, great giveaway there. So again, with Wagner now, I'm expecting in this sim, he'll probably spend, I would say, a month or less in the minor leagues before Pittsburgh calls him up. And the way this will work, each episode will basically be a season recap. I'll talk a little bit about how the individual players did, and also briefly about what happened within the league, who were the division winners, who won the World Series, etc. And I think it'll just be kind of a fun alternate replay with these 5 Hall of Famers involved in that. So as we're speaking, the 2020 season is coming to a conclusion, and the New York Yankees have wrapped up, and Tampa Bay Rays have both wrapped up their division in the playoffs. So we're going to take a look at how Honus Wagner did in his inaugural season. And again, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, and Babe Ruth will debut in the 2021 draft. Ty Cobb will not debut until the 2022 draft. So we're going to check Pittsburgh out now. I was actually real happy when Wagner went to the Pittsburgh Pirates. I was hoping at least one of the players would end up on the team they actually played with. So here we go. Wagner, again, 7th overall pick, and he ended up actually spending no time in the minors. So in his inaugural season with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Wagner again drafted as a center fielder, and he assumed his position in the starting lineup. Played in 85 games after the draft for the Pirates, and hit a robust 323 in his inaugural season. Stole 13 bases in 18 attempts. Had 4 home runs, 43 RBIs, and scored 55 runs. So an exceptional debut season for Hannes Wagner. And the Pirates overall, as expected, they're in rebuild mode. They finished dead last in the National League Central, a record of 68 and 92. So 21 and a half games out of first place. And Wagner's currently their leadoff batter. The current Pittsburgh lineup includes Wagner first, Brian Reynolds second, Josh Bell third, Gregory Polanco in the cleanup spot, Cabrian Hayes fifth at third base, Kevin Newman at second, Jacob Stallings is the catcher, and the shortstop Stephen Alameus. And again, Wagner drafted as a center fielder. It'll be curious to see if he eventually converts to this shortstop position that he played most of the time in his big league career, but he again also played the outfield when he was a major league player back in the dead ball era. So that is pretty much going to wrap up the first episode. I wanted to give a just kind of an overview of what this project will be. And again, next year, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, and Babe Ruth will debut in the 2021 draft. And we'll be eager to see where they go. I expect Johnson and Mathewson will go in the first round. Based on Ruth's ratings right now, he is not going to go in the first round. It could be a very late round pick. So to wrap up the 2020 season outside of Hannes Wagner, the division winners in 2020. Just a sec here. All right, we're the New York Yankees and Tampa Bay Rays tied for the NL or AL East division. So both will make the playoffs. Cleveland Indians won the Central. Astros won in the West. And we have a 1-game playoff between the Yankees and the Rays to decide who gets the division winner spot and who is the wild card representative. In the National League, the Atlanta Braves won the East, St. Louis Cardinals the Central, Dodgers won the West, and the wild card teams were Cincinnati and Arizona Diamondbacks. So again, we'll have a summary of how this season ends, and then starting in 2021, start to pick up a little bit with our next episode because Wagner will be in his second season, and Ruth, Johnson, and Mathewson will all be drafted, and I expect at least 2 of them to make an impact in the major leagues next year as well. So that will be our next episode. And question from Rob: feelings on MLB possibly putting Yankees, Phillies, Blue Jays, Tigers, and Pirates in the Grapefruit League North Division. You know what? I miss baseball as much as anybody, and I want, I want to watch games too. I don't know if the current format is really a good idea. I mean, the way they're talking about it now, players would be sequestered with, for possibly 2, 3, 4 months without their families. And I know they're grown men getting paid a lot of money to play a major league game. Hey, Dave Little joining the chat. Welcome, my friend. This episode on the Out of the Park piece was very brief. Hannes Wagner, to give you a recap, I took Walter Johnson, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Hannes Wagner, Christy Mathewson, which are the inaugural Baseball Hall of Fame class 1936, imported them into 2020 Out of the Park 21 baseball, and we're going to let them get drafted and see how their careers play out. And I'm just going to basically be an observer, will not have any hands-on impact at all. In fact, I've hidden their injury ratings, so I'd be tempted not to edit them. So if they get injured, and they're done. And currently, the only one that got drafted is Hannes Wagner. He was drafted again, coincidentally by the Pittsburgh Pirates, who he played for in real life. Got called up after the draft, played in 85 games and hit 324 in his inaugural big league season. So I'm expecting all 5 of these guys will have success, and to the extent of which it'll be kind of fun to follow, see who does the best. But yeah, and in regards to your question, Rob, it's really rough. I mean, again, you're taking players. Even Duke doesn't like the idea. You're taking players that they might have to be away for their family for months. And one player mentioned he lives in Arizona, and if he's got to leave his family and basically stay away from them for 2 or 3 months, he doesn't know if that'll work. And the other thing too, you have players whose wives are pregnant, possibly having babies later in the summer. So you're going to expect them to stay away from their families. If they do leave and they come back, do they have to be quarantined? Is it safe? I think in regards to any setup, I mean, anything that gets baseball would be cool, but in terms of a setup, I think the first thing you have to look at beyond sports, and we all love sports. Sports are a great diversion. Sports are things that a lot of us follow because we connect them with different moments in our lives. We played sports. I played baseball up until high school when I stopped to focus on football, and then also that was the point I started boxing too. So that kind of filled in the space that I normally would have been playing baseball, and I was a decent baseball player, but I probably wasn't going to play a lot. Football was my best sport. So that's why I stuck with that, but for all of us who played the game and connect things, I like 1978, my freshman year in high school, great season by the Yankees, Rod and Guidry, the Bucky Dent home run. You take those moments and put them with a place in time. So yeah, sports are special to a lot of us because we connect them with time points in our life. But I don't think forcing this to happen is necessarily a great idea because, the thing you have to keep out there first and foremost is the health, not only the players, but of the public as well. So, I'm not a big fan of that arrangement, Rob. I think if there was the possibility to maybe start the season sequestered in Florida and Arizona like that, or I know Arizona's been mentioned as a sole place. You know what? Maybe if there was really a guarantee that it could be for a short period of time, 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know with what we know about COVID right now that anyone can make that guarantee, and it would probably be foolish to assume that you can just put the players. We'll play here for a month in empty stadiums and all be good to go. I mean, you don't want to get out there before there's a vaccine and suddenly put 40,000 people in a baseball stadium in August, and then there's another surge in the cases. So I would prefer it to be, if they did do anything like that, I'd prefer it to be the National League and American League together. But first and foremost, I'd like to see things blow over a little bit with this virus before sports get talked about, because at the end of the day, that's not the most important thing. So and the players, I think Major League Baseball floated this out there, kind of leaked it to the public in advance to let the to let the players digest it, and then I think they're kind of gauging the feedback that the players are given. And at this point, from what I've been following, the players' feedback has pretty much been, yeah, we all want to get back on the field and play, but we want it to be under circumstances where it's going to be safe for all the players and the players' families. And, also none of these players want to spend, if you're talking about playing this way for 3-4 months, none of these players want to spend 3 or 4 months away from their families. And, I don't blame them. Who would? All the money in the world doesn't make up for obviously the joy and the happiness that you get with your family. And, we're all going through that now. We haven't seen any of our kids or grandkids in coming up on a month because we just want to keep everybody, safe. And my wife is a primary caregiver for her parents too, and they're both in poor health. So, just a lot of things to factor in when you're talking about baseball. So we will just see how that goes. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But that's going to be it for episode 1. Thanks for checking in, guys. Episode 2, again, we will have Ruth Christy Mathewson, Walter Johnson in the majors by that point in time, as they'll be drafted. And we'll see if Honus Wagner, joining his real life team, the Pirates, can turn Pittsburgh around and lead a resurgence for the Pirates. It'll be interesting to see if they can even keep him, because the way he started, he's going to command a pretty fair sum of money when he hits free agency down the road. So that's it for this episode of Out of the Park Time Machine. And IDJ just joined. Yeah, we're doing good out here, buddy. We're blessed. We have a decent backyard. We've got set up nicely. So it's kind of been our resort and our escape, because I've worked from home for 10 plus years, and I never realized how much I was not at home when I wasn't working until now. And so I'm going a little stir crazy, even though I'm used to working from home. So yeah, we spent a lot of time in our backyard, watching movies out there, just chilling in the jacuzzi, listening to music, and getting through it the best we can, like we all are. So, yeah, and then you bring up a good point, Rob. Say they do restart this, all it's going to take is one player to test positive. Then what's your contingency plan? What do you do after that? Then you have to lock down everybody that player's had in contact with. So, I don't know how practical this idea is going to be. I want, like I said, I want to see baseball, but I want it to be where it's in the best interest of the players and their families as well, because they're most important. And ID Gesture, if you did not check it out, he rated his top 17 baseball games. And Glory Days Baseball almost made it to our number one game this year, as he says, if it had only been released. I'm actually, I had planned to do absolutely nothing with that game for quite a while, because, Glory Days Boxing, that has been carried by Sideline Strategy, who makes Payoff Pitch. I did not want to step on toes there, but I talked to Joe about that probably 2 months ago, and he actually would not be opposed to releasing Glory Days Baseball down the road. So at some point, I'll get back to that. Right now, though, besides rating boxing sets for the boxing game, I'm working on a college football game that I hope to have done by the end of summer, and maybe even sooner, because right now, if you don't know, obviously, high school football is shut down too. So this is the time we'd normally be going through our spring practice and doing install and whatnot to get ready for passing league, and that's been shut down at this point, based on the district I coach in. The earliest we can have contact with the players, and it's very tentative, is July. So right now, even the high school football season in Arizona is in jeopardy, because normally we would start practice the last week of July, depending on when we open the season. Last year we opened it the third week of August. So, you need an X amount of time. Kids too, without structured, especially where I coach in a more economically depressed area, they're not getting the strength and conditioning program that we do. So we're kind of trusting them to work out on their own. That doesn't always work well with teenagers. So even with the high school football season, the paramount objective there is the safety of the kids. And, not just with this virus, but when they come back to camp, making sure that they are in condition basically to play football. So, if we, the high school season here, the way it is now, I would expect one of two things to happen. Either we'll get pushed back, which I would welcome, because starting football in the end of August in Arizona is, and I don't know, the AIA here keeps pushing the start of the season up earlier. And to be honest with you, it's just fucking crazy to be playing games when at kickoff time at 7 o'clock on a Friday night, it's 110 degrees outside. So I wouldn't mind the season getting pushed back 2 or 3 weeks. The other option is we play a shortened season. Possibly I've heard from 6 to 8 games, even just playing a couple of non-league games, then going straight into our region schedule. So, that would be, I would think, probably a stronger possibility at this point. And again, safety of the kids is most important. I obviously want to have a season. We have, for us, we actually have a pretty decent senior class coming back, especially for the school I coach at, which, we're trying to rebuild that, which many coaches before us have tried. And it's a school that's been around since the late 50s and has had exactly 4 winning seasons in that time. So it's just the way it is. And I've been blessed to coach at a very successful high school here, Westview, prior to going to Carl Hayden, where we're on a string of 12 straight playoff appearances, played for 2 state titles. And I actually enjoy coaching at Carl Hayden as much as I did at Westview, because the kids are awesome. They're absolutely awesome. They just didn't get dealt the hand that a lot of us get, and it's not their fault, but they still deserve to be coached and an opportunity. So we love coaching them, and that's what we can do, coach them up. But I'd be really disappointed if we lose our season this year, because I think we have an actual legit opportunity to have the 5th winning season in school history this year and compete for a region title with the new region we're in. So that would be a shame if that got taken away. But again, whatever's best for the participants is what we should look at first. So, yeah, Dave. I'm still doing balancing with that. Once I get to where I'm comfortable with how balanced the game's going to be, then it's just going to be a matter of rating teams, and that should go pretty quick. So if you're familiar with Glory Days boxing, the principle works in a very similar manner, where except for ring generalship in the Glory Days college football game, the basically outcome of the play is going to be affected by a trench battle. So whoever is best in the trenches, controls the trenches, is going to dictate the outcome of the play, much like in real football. So it's going to have some different mechanics than some of the other board football games out there. Some unique mechanics, even with timing. So, again, I'm still balancing that, and I'm going to have some people help beta test when the time comes. But, hoping to have that done and ready to go for the college football season this year, whenever that starts. But anyhow, thank you all for checking in. And again, check out Dave Little and Dave Gardner's channel. Dave Gardner, of course, also does the Digital Dice podcast with our good friend Ron Juckett at Retro Sports Network. ID Gesture played some Strat today, believe it or not. I had to look twice. I had to sign off and sign back on to make sure I wasn't seeing things, but he was actually playing Strat. So check out his channel. Also playing some Triple Play. Has a good directory of the top 17 tabletop baseball games in his opinion, and all very fairly rated, in my opinion, watching that. Yeah, go Strat. Love that game. I know you do, buddy. So, hey, until next time. And then also watch some very entertaining wrestling on Dave Little's channel today as well. And old school stuff with territory guys from the 80s. So appreciate that, Dave. And again, Rob exclamation point, check out his channel. Got some red, white, and blue racing up again. And yeah, that's kind of the God, what is that called? Hey, Al, what's up, buddy? There's a word for that, where basically you fall in love with your captor, and it slips my mind at the moment. But hey, Al, just wrapping this up, and just to I guess get you up to speed, then we'll sign off, Al. So what I did in this project again is I took the first 5 inductees to the Baseball Hall of Fame: Walter Johnson, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner, and Christy Mathewson. I exported them into the Out of the Park 21 baseball world, and I'm going to let them get drafted and see how they played out. And the way I imported them a year before their actual debut. Stockholm Syndrome. Thank you, Dave Little. IDJ has Stockholm Syndrome with Strat. There you go. I imported them the year before they actually debuted, and I'm just letting the universe play out as it will. And the only one that was eligible for the 2020 draft was Honus Wagner, because he was older when he debuted, and he was actually drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So he's going to get a chance to return his beloved Pirates to their former glory. And the 2021 draft, Ruth, Walter Johnson, and Mathewson will be eligible. And Cobb, who was the youngest when he actually debuted, He imported into this game as a 16-year-old, so he won't be eligible until the 2022 draft, but he is the most promising player at this point. He hit 605 in his sophomore season in high school, according to Out of the Park. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but it should be fun. And again, I'll be playing out full seasons, and then I'll do a recap. Each episode will be a recap of that season, how our 5 players did, and who won the pennants, World Series, MVPs, etc., in the real world. So, hey, Arnold Hunter, thanks for joining, buddy. And yeah, I don't make many screen appearances. That's for your own good, by the way. But thank you very much for the kind words on Glory Days Boxing. And again, next set for Glory Days Boxing is the next 100 heavyweight set. And that is going, I'm actually starting to rate those now. So I anticipate having those out in May, towards the end of May. And there'll be some fun fighters in there, as well as the 2 lineal champions that were not in the original release, meaning Jess Willard and Jack Sharkey. Jack Sharkey. Tom's already in the game. So Nat King Curry, hey buddy, how are you doing? Just finishing up our chat here, but yeah, if you want to check out what this series is going to be about, go back to the beginning. It's basically just seeing how Hall of Famers will perform in the current modern day baseball world. So it should be a lot of fun. Until next time, thanks for watching, everyone, and hope everyone is staying safe and, more importantly, sane out there. I'm probably going to do record Battle of the Sexes in my household, which will be me and Mrs. Bleacher Bums Gaming, aka Candy, playing cornhole. I don't know. I might record it, depending on how it turns out. I might not put it up on the channel because we tend to talk a lot of shit to each other when we play. It might get ugly, folks, but we'll see. Plus, I got this bad shoulder I'm still rehabbing, so I'm going to be playing with my left hand. So that will add another twist to it. But hey, happy Easter to all of you. Hope you all stay safe. Until next time, whatever game you play, keep rolling for the fences, rolling for the knockout. Just keep rolling, and we will see you later. Have a good night and happy Easter, everyone. And Al, yeah, you might not want to see that. We'll see how that goes. We'll talk to you all later.